was it aimed at, California or America?
No, I think it was Gavin presented Gavin. He was introducing himself to all of us, all Californians and all America. And he did an excellent job, frankly, of displaying Gavin Newsom and all of his glory.
And all of his contradictions, high-speed rail.
Well, yeah, I mean, and one of the things that I think he was really aiming to do was to distinguish himself from Jerry Brown and come out and say, look, I'm a Democrat, but he didn't talk at all about climate change during the speech.
True.
And he immediately came out. The first thing he said was, National Guards, we're going to pull back.
Yep.
Second thing he said was, we're going to put the pause on high-speed rail. Third thing was, I'm killing the Twin Tunnels project. I mean, that's a pretty clear statement that I'm my own
Tunnels
man.
down to one.
It's a new day.
It took him 8 years to be able to get even with Jerry. Remember, he's been tried all 8 years. And believe me, Jerry may find himself confined to Calusa.
Well, you know, and it seemed like he had this sort of long list. If you sit there and as I was taking notes of all the issues he was trying to tackle, it was extraordinary. It's like he's been sitting there for 8 years, just, you know, in his journal, you know, writing out all the things he would do. And finally he gets to sort of roll them all out. And it was a lot of promises in there. And he said there's more to come.
But he rolled them out beautifully because it was almost as if he was doing the State of the Union, not the State of the State. When he walked that nurse down who had saved 100 people in the fire, when he did all those things with all those people, including Schwarzenegger's former wife, it was dramatic. I could not believe it. It was like it was scripted. He was so good.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting speech, much longer than Jerry Brown usually gives.
I know that there was a lot of disappointment in Silicon Valley about the high-speed rail, but I know we're going to have more on that conversation coming up in the newscast. But I did talk to someone yesterday, Carl Gardina, who says, don't consider it dead just yet.
Oh, well, that's certainly good news. I know there's some issue with how much money the rail authority has.
Well, I think there's a tremendous shortfall in terms of what they want to build and how much it's going to cost and how much they actually have dedicated to it.
That's right. They're going to have to find more money somewhere. So Phil Matier and I asked former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown if declaring a national emergency was a good move or a bad move.
Oh, I think it's a Trump move. And you can't qualify it as either good or bad. It's a Trump move. He made a commitment during the course of the campaign that there would be a wall. He said there are two things. There would be a wall, and I'm going to lock Hillary up. The wall is now his object. And Hillary, she's coming to California to live in a state where there's sanctuary.
Well, I mean, it does accomplish his goal of being able to say, look, I shut down the government. I'm fighting for you, right? I'm going to declare this national emergency, because if he just was going to come back to his base with the deal that's been hammered out in Congress, I don't know that they would take that as sufficient to fulfill the promise of a wall. 1.375 doesn't go too far. At least this way he can say, I tried to go further.
Okay, and he can say the Democrats didn't. Now, how does this help the Democrats, or does it? Does it take the border off? No, why not?
Democrats have been trying to figure out how to just keep the government going. There's so many people who were adversely affected, their income and other things, services. For an example, I tried to get my passport renewed, and I could not do that. And it turned out
that's because of the security check.
That's right.
I wasn't going to say it.
But
you guys are waiting.
But does Trump signing this sort of take the whole question of border security off the table as far as an issue?
It's gone.
All right. So the Democrats don't look like they're letting everybody in.
But at the same time, I mean, remember, he's going to declare. I mean, he declared the national emergency, and then Democrats have a tendency at times to overreact, and so it may draw them into doing something that could hurt them down the road if they look like
they're for sure going to file a lawsuit almost instantly somewhere along somebody, one of the 28 people running.
You know what they say about lawsuits? It's a sign of weakness.
Well,
if you don't have the votes, you go to court.
No, you go to a client who pays $1,000 an hour. It's not a bad reason to file the lawsuit, Phil. I don't know what you're talking about, weakness.
Now, don't forget, the president's relying on 3 separate laws to get this money, and only about half of the money is contingent on a national emergency. The other half he could do or he can use even without a national emergency. So even if that goes down, there's still some other avenues for him.
Now, if what this is all about really is kind of keeping a promise that he made during the campaign, don't you think that his supporters have the sophistication to see through this? I mean, he didn't get a legislative victory. He's unlikely to get a victory this way if it gets tied up in the courts. So he doesn't accomplish what he's promised.
But he can say, I tried. And they can say, well, if it wasn't for those activist judges, if it wasn't for Democrats, then we would have what we needed. But he did everything that he possibly could, exhausted every avenue to get this done for us. And so, and he can say, look, I tried.